Next, I'll have my amazing colleague that has led the effort in October of last year in leading the effort on the ceasefire resolution. She has been an incredible advocate, just a real true leader, but somebody that is leading with compassion. This woman calls me every single day to check up on me. And I'll tell her, you know, you make me stand still, and then I start crying. I feel so helpless as a member of Congress. But she makes me make sure that I don't feel alone. So with that, Cori Bush.
Call you because you're my sister, and I got to make sure you're good. If nobody else in this Congress needs to have a call to make sure that you're good, the one and only Palestinian American should receive the call to make sure that you're good. And so I love you, sis. Hello, everyone. I want to thank you all for being here. And again, thank you to my sister in service in this push for a ceasefire, in this strong push for a ceasefire, Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib. Thank you for bringing us all together today to urgently and loudly and forcefully say that we, the United States, have a moral obligation to use our immense power to stop the Israeli government's plans to invade Rafah, where over 1 million Palestinians were told to seek refuge. I also want to thank all of my colleagues who came out today in support of this call, Representatives Lee and Garcia, Schakowsky. I know Omar will be here, Ramirez, Velasquez, Dingle, to Johnson and Carson. You all are such a great reflection of how strong our movement for a ceasefire is. I'm grateful for your advocacy, and it is this movement that gives me hope that we will see a lasting ceasefire in Gaza and a just and lasting peace in Palestine and Israel. The Israeli government's threat to imminently invade Rafah is unconscionable. Rafah is supposed to be a safe zone in Gaza and the last one left. It is where 1.5 million displaced Palestinians are trapped. And though it was referred to as this safe zone, we know that it is not really safe. There aren't enough places to sleep, and families are sleeping in chicken coops or sheltering wherever they can find a place. There is such widespread starvation that people have resorted to mixing, which we just heard from Rashida Tlaib, mixing animal feed with grass and feeding it to their children. Doctors and medical staff don't have enough supplies to treat patients for even some of the most basic illnesses, let alone the horrific injuries caused by the Israeli forces' relentless attacks on civilians, on civilian infrastructure, and even the humanitarian medical aid that is needed to help save lives. So to be clear, since Rafah isn't a safe zone, there is no safe zone in Gaza. And just think about it for a moment. Those of us that have never fed animal feed mixed with grass to our children. Let's think about that. There is nowhere else to go. Everywhere else has been destroyed, turned to rubble with bodies piled underneath. Nowhere is home, because if you leave now, while the U.S.-backed Israeli military is destroying and intent on occupying it, there is no guarantee that you will be able to be allowed back. And if this was your family, what would you do? Where would you go? We need to secure an immediate and lasting ceasefire. An immediate and lasting ceasefire is how we save 1.5 million Palestinians in Rafah. An immediate and lasting ceasefire is how we get the children and other civilians in Gaza the massive humanitarian assistance they desperately need. An immediate ceasefire and lasting ceasefire is how we ensure the safety and release of hostages and those arbitrarily detained. An immediate and lasting ceasefire is how we end the bloodshed, end the complicity, end the inhumanity. An immediate and lasting ceasefire is how we ensure peace and justice for all. And to be clear, only a lasting ceasefire can bring us these outcomes. Only a lasting ceasefire is acceptable, not a temporary pause, not a ceasefire with an end date, not pretending to care about civilians by sending them a sliver of humanitarian aid only to indiscriminately bomb them days later. Only a lasting ceasefire. So this afternoon, Congresswoman Tlaib and I are sending a letter to President Biden underscoring the again the urgency of this growing catastrophe. We are requesting a meeting with President Biden. We are demanding an immediate, lasting ceasefire and that the Israeli government commit to ceasing any plans to bombard and invade Rafah. As lawmakers leading the push in Congress for a ceasefire, we want to hear directly from President Biden. The majority of voters in this country want a ceasefire, including 77% of Democrats. And the majority of the world wants a ceasefire. People in this country do not want to be complicit in the atrocities that are happening in Gaza. We don't want that. Not on our watch. And we've said it over and over again. Not on our watch and not on our dime. How many Palestinian deaths must our country be complicit in killing before the violence ends? How many Palestinian children must die before we stop bear hugging Netanyahu's extremist far-right government with our taxpayer-sponsored bombs and weapons? How many Palestinian families must be destroyed before we stop enabling these war crimes? How many more before Biden will act with the full leverage of the U.S. government to facilitate a lasting ceasefire to end the violence and save lives? If the Israeli military invades Rafah, tens of thousands more Palestinians, more than over the 30,000, will die. President Biden, we are urging you to use your power to lead us to a lasting ceasefire, to do everything in your power to put an end to the violence. The loss we have already seen is too much. Ceasefire now.